G'day, I'm Sharon and welcome. Let's start making some sashing to go with my squares. First into embroidery mode, and then I need to get a design off a file, which in this case happens to be an ATAPC card. I know that it's in that folder. You can see here 4 different kinds of sashing and corner sashings, and I will explain in a bit what the corner sashings are all about. First, we're going to have a little stitch out of each of these. I'm going to choose them in the order they're in here. The machine is actually ready to stitch it out right in the middle of a bee hoop at the moment, but that would be a huge waste of space and fabric. So I'm going to put it in the edit screen, and you can see it's there in the middle, as they always put them out. I'm going to move that one to the very top. Now I want to get the next one. I can go in here because I've had that folder open already and get the next one. And I'm going to move this one up, and I want it to be 1 square above the central line. And that's because that allows me a bit more than 1/4 of an inch between this one and the middle line. And it also allows me 1/2 an inch between the top of this one and the bottom of that one. So there's actually about 1.5 squares break between those 2 squares. I have to be aware that in this particular machine, whichever design I touch last, that's the one it's going to stitch last. So it does them in the order that they are last touched in. Let's get the next one. And this one I'm going to move down until it's 1 square below that central line. So I've got one that's sort of a big curve intersecting, one that's a feather, one that has geometric squares in it, and finally this one, which is just the rectangle. In all cases, these designs are 14 centimetres wide and 3.5 centimetres high, but I need to leave enough space between them so that when I go to cut them out, I can get the 1/4 of an inch on the top of this one and the bottom of this one, etc., etc. I need to have these designs at least 1/2 an inch apart so that I've got space for doing my cutting. I managed to miss filming the very beginning of this design. If you use this design and you put it around a square, all 4 sides, every square in a quilt, you end up with an effect like interconnecting circles around each block. This feather design is the one I'm going to use on my overlocker cover. It goes well with these designs, which are all feathery and flowery anyway. If I was making something and I was using lots of geometric and squared off sorts of blocks, then I would be using this one for my sashing. The final sashing design is a rectangle that's the same size as the others and allows you to do whatever you want to do with it. If you have a Janome CM17 and you buy this set of designs, then you will get 24 different designs for $5 US. If you've got a 500E, then you would get 16 designs for $5. You still get the same number of designs, but that's how many will sew out on your particular machine. By the way, I have managed to arrange these designs, the sashing designs, in the grand hoop on my Memory Craft 15,000, and I can do 10 of them at a time. So you're not restricted to doing them only in these small hoops. Put them in the biggest hoop you can, just make sure you leave enough space for doing your cutting at the end. This time I'm looking at the sashing corners, and I need to come in here and go into Embroidery folder 6 because that's where it is. Once again, I've got 4 of them and they actually match up with the ones underneath them. I made a slight mistake with this one, and it's the one I want to use. Now the machine has just put that design fair and square in the middle. The mistake I made with this design is that I've got the end of it in the bottom right corner and I need it to be in the top left corner. So I'm going to go into the edit screen and I'm going to flip it left, right and up, down, and even though you can't see anything, that has just put it the way I want it to be. If you have a newer machine that cuts threads, this does not apply to you at all because your machine will cut the threads, it won't be a problem. It's only a problem in the older machines where having jump threads that end up stuck in the middle of the next design become a problem. Interestingly, this is an old machine and there is something you can do with it that you can't do with the newer ones. Putting that design all the way to the top and all the way to the left, and then I'm going to copy it. And I've already made those changes, so this one's got its changes made, and I'm going to move it all the way to the centre top, and I'm going to copy it again over to the right and to the top. One of the weird things about this old machine is that if I say OK now, there's the design. It's going to take 3 minutes to stitch them out up at the top. If in the more modern machines I go back into the edit screen, they become 3 individual pieces. In this old machine, they have now become 1 piece. And because of that, I can copy it, whoops, and as I did with the other ones, I can just separate them 1 square away from the middle, copy it again, and 1 square away from the centre. I'm not going to waste your time by stitching these out on camera. Suffice to say that I can stitch out 12 of these little squares in about 8 minutes and 4 of the sashing strips in about 7 minutes. So even though it seems like you need a lot of them, they don't really take very long to stitch out. When you come to cutting these apart, they're all exactly one under the other. So I can place my ruler on the top and bottom lines and cut. I need to remember that I've got to cut that 1/4 inch on each one. And there will be some gap between. It's the same with the sashing corners. Each of the sashings has a matching sashing corner. So there's a square one, the one that will make a design sort of like a circle around each of the individual squares has its little matching one. The feather has its matching flower, and the templates, which are bare and you can do whatever you like with them, have their matching ones as well. How you choose to do the next bit is completely up to you. This is one of the squares that will go into my cover for my air threader. I could choose to put probably all the same, but say sashing pieces around it and have that sashing pieces all the same colour, and then put my corners in and have them all the same colour. That will essentially give me an effect, once I do the joining and covering the joins, it will give me an effect like a whole cloth. My plan is to use this fabric for my sashing, and I'm planning to use that fabric also for the tape that is going to be used to cover the joins. This is going to give quite a different look, and it would look different again if I used this fabric in the corners, but I think I'd quite like that to be the same as the main squares. It's all things that you can play with and change depending what you want to do. Because I want to do my sashing with this fabric, which has essentially like nap, it's got a direction to it, I have to make sure that as I'm stitching them all, I have that nap going in the correct direction. But they really don't take very long to do. Next time I'm going to begin assembling the panels I need for making a cover for my Air Threader 2000. Sashings and blocks, and also doing some of the strips that cover those joins. I will need to check on my machine exactly how I need to make the shape of them, especially for the sides. But it's going to be an interesting process. See you next time.